Can you let me know if you can hear me and see me? Just have about 10 people. Just drop me a Y in the chat box. If you haven't used it before, it's down in the bottom right-hand corner. Hey, Petra. Awesome. I'm going to give it a couple of minutes because I realize it's exactly 8 o'clock and some people will be late. So I thought it was you. I was just making sure. I said hi, but I couldn't see your surname. Okay, can everyone else hear me? So far, I have 4 people, but I know there's definitely more people there. Awesome. Hey everyone. Okay, amazing. So I'll give it till about 4 minutes past and then we can kick off. Just some small things. If for some reason the sound goes or the screen looks a bit funny, please let us know in the chat bot. Just tell us immediately. Um, Sometimes it can be that your Wi-Fi is too slow, but sometimes it's us. So just let us know. The other thing is, if we ask you questions and it just needs a yes or no answer, just you press Y or N, just so we know that you're still there and still listening and we haven't made you fall asleep. And then questions. We'll be doing questions throughout. So if there's something you didn't understand or didn't hear or want to know more about, do ask. But at the end, we've left about 15, 20 minutes so you can get all your questions in as well. If we can't answer anything today, we will do it hopefully via email over the next couple of days. Cool. We'll give them like another minute tops. And then if they're late, it's their own fault. To the people who've just come, hi. Can you let me know if you can hear me and you can see me? I know there's another 3 people, and I will press you until you tell me you can hear me. Okay, let's check. Hello. Anybody else who's just joined, we're going to start in 1 minute, so about 3 minutes past. So we're just making sure everyone can hear and see and making sure everything's good before we kick off. Okay, cool. So hi everyone, I'm Anisah. I am the founder and CEO of 23 Code Street. If you've not heard of us before, we are a coding school for all women and non-binary people based here in London. We also have a one-for-one model, so for every person we teach here in the UK, we teach women in the slums of Mumbai digital skills. So during our courses, we keep getting asked questions around stuff that's a little bit outside the scope of the courses. So things like, how do you start a business? How do you make sure you're okay with that first interview for your first ever technical job? How do you make sure you're confident enough to be in a male-dominated space? How? And we can't answer these questions within our courses, but also we know that there are other people who want to know the answers to this stuff. So we thought, why not put on a webinar series for people who not only don't know us personally and don't come to our courses, but who may be outside of London and could also benefit from this session. So today's one is called How to Launch Your Idea, which I will be running with Tom Salmon, who is this face. Let me see if I can point. If you can see my pointer, that is him. I promise he doesn't look that scary in real life. No, I'm lying, he does. Who we're going to be talking about how to start a company, what the positives and negatives of running a company are, and how to have an online presence without any technical skills. And then if you do have technical skills, how to build on top of that. Does that sound okay with everyone? Awesome. Okay, so I should probably introduce you to Tom, who's going to come and sit next to me in a very very technical sliding way. Okay, let's make sure you can see us.
Hi everyone.
Can we move this way? There we go. We're both too fat to fit in the screen. It's a problem.
Need super wide lens.
So Tom, you are a partner at 23 Code Street.
I am.
But you're also a very successful entrepreneur in your own right, because obviously we don't make you successful. Oh, and this is a dog. If you can see, this is my dog, Lady Grey. So Tom, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
So, hi everyone. I'm Tom Salmon, and as Anisah said, I'm a partner in 20. So, have a couple of other businesses that I run at the moment. One of them that I have over 10 years now is called Traffic Digital, and that's a digital agency. We help people design and build websites, web applications, and we do lots of design work as well as part of that. And I also have a company called Bakery, which is, I guess you'd call it an innovation business.
Where does it make croissants?
It does not make. It's not a bakery.
I'm really sad.
We love pastry, but we don't make them. We help large corporates do new stuff by working with very early stage startups. And we have a whole network around the world of early stage startups, and we bring them into a relationship with a big corporate and help them take new products and services to market. And I've been doing that for about 5 or 6 years, so that's where I've come from.
That's actually how we met.
It was. Anisah was our first employee, amazingly, and we survived.
So obviously you may have seen me flick through the slides, but if you want to get us on Twitter at any point, these are all our handles. So at 23 Code Street on Instagram and Twitter, at Tom Salmon on Twitter, and at Anisah OB on Twitter, not Anisah Hobb, although it does sound like that if you read it. Okay, so Tom, why did you start like a company? What was behind it? What was the reasoning?
Because I was mad.
Yeah, makes sense.
I kind of always run my own business pretty much, and I got into that because I was a musician originally, and I was in a band, and in order to have a band, unfortunately, sometimes you need to learn about running a business, and we set our limited company up and had to register for VAT and go through all of that. But strangely, it was a strange route into being an entrepreneur, and through that, I grew to quite love it, and I liked the aspect of running the business. And so when the band fell apart, as most bands do, I got into coding, and then I started a digital agency, which was Traffic, and then I got into starting the bakery. So, I found that I really enjoyed running my own business, or most of it. There's lots of aspects of it that can be difficult and challenging,
We'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah, but I really liked that. I liked the sense of ownership. I liked the sense of freedom, which is sometimes not totally real because obviously you have a lot of responsibility and commitment. But and it's really exciting when it's going well and it's growing and you're making money. So there's lots and lots of really positive aspects of doing it, and I've done it for such a long time now that I can't imagine doing anything else, and I think I'd be a pretty terrible employee now.
I guess I started a company because I was frustrated. I was frustrated that every room that I walked in was full of men like you. No, but when I was working at the bakery, it was really obvious to me that a lot of the people we worked with who were decision makers and especially technical in those roles were men, and I couldn't quite understand why that was the case. I couldn't understand why we weren't seeing women who were coming in who were saying they were the CTOs, so the technical people in the company. And there was this one story that came out while I was working for you, which was that Apple had released this health app. And I remember being like, oh, another Apple thing. But I remember reading the story and it being like, there was an alcohol tracker, there was like a step counter, they were building in this sweat thing, it had like calorie counter, but it didn't have a period tracker. And this journalist was obviously furious, and I was obviously furious. And it turned out that there wasn't any women on the team. So I started the company out of frustration and also because I'm a terrible employee. I'd rather be running and being in charge of what's going on rather than being behind the scenes. Not that I think everyone should do that, because some people definitely make better employees and bosses, and some people are definitely great at running companies but not being good bosses. And then there are those who do both really well, but I'm not good at being an employee.
You were pretty good at being an employee
That's
most,
because I
most
ran
of
the
the time.
place.
But I think you bring up an interesting aspect of starting a business or launching it, that you had a real purpose and mission, and you wanted to solve a real problem in the world. And that's really powerful when you're starting a new business, if you've got that sense of mission and purpose, that when things are difficult, it can help drive you on. And when things are working, you feel there's an additional benefit. It's not all about money. Obviously, money is super important, and it's a big reason for starting a business. But when things are difficult, if you're doing something that you don't genuinely love, they're the times then when you'll quit, because if you don't really love it, it won't be worth it in the tough times. So I think that one of the most important points is to do something that you really love and enjoy, as well as that you can see there's a real commercial opportunity to make some money from.
Yeah. Actually, while we're here, how many of you already run companies, either side hustle type companies or that you run full time now? Just be really good to get an idea of what and who you all are. The status has changed to raise hand. I don't know what that means. Years ago, Petra. I didn't know that, Petra. So is that, I can't remember the name, it's so far
Yeah,
away. Mansata, you run a company, you're self-employed, cool. You've been running a company for a year and a half, awesome.
not a registered company.
That's someone else. You have a little company, amazing. And how many of you want to start companies? Awesome. Amazing. So we're talking to
Cool.
the right group of people,
Yeah.
which is always useful. How many people have we got? We've got 16 people. Amazing. Okay, awesome. That's so great. Congratulations. Um, okay, so Tom, what do you love about running a company? What would you say are the top, maybe 4 or 5 things?
So, as I said before, I love the excitement of running a business. I've really enjoyed. I've translated. I think what I loved before was making things and creating. When I was doing music or building websites, I really loved that aspect of making something, and I've translated that into actually how I view the overall business now. As the business has got bigger, I don't spend time doing the actual day-to-day stuff, and I don't make things anymore. But the business is something that I am building and creating and making, and that gives me a lot of satisfaction, and thinking about how all the different components of it need to work, and learning about all the different aspects of it has been really enjoyable. I'm not an expert in any of them, but again, to run a business, you need to know enough about most of them. So I've had to learn a lot about selling and marketing, and some bits about accountancy that I'm trying to stay away from.
Same.
I think that one of the first things you learn is that it's good to get a good accountant, and that the less that you have to do that kind of bookkeeping and paperwork, the better. But again, to start with, you have to roll your sleeves up and do a little bit of everything, and it's good to know how some of those things work. And I quite like learning, so I've really enjoyed that excitement and putting the business together. And as I've seen it grow again, you kind of enjoy that whole process of seeing it grow. And I like the sense of freedom. I'm not a great employee, and I don't like being told what to do too much. So again, that kind of works for me.
At all.
And I, have got, a life that I believe I have a lot of freedom in, but there's a counter side to that, which is that actually you have a lot of responsibility. You have employees, you have clients, and you maybe don't, even though you could in theory take as much holiday as you like, you probably don't take as much holiday as you would in a normal job, but in your mind, you think, well, I can always, take the day off, but actually, you end up working probably more than you would normally. Um, but yeah, I think they're the main things. I think that ability to, we're in the process at the bakery of starting to grow internationally and do those sorts of things, and that's really exciting. It's exciting to be able to go to other countries. It's exciting to start to understand different markets and things like that. So it's always changing. There's always stuff to learn, new challenges every day,
Yeah.
and that's what I really really enjoy about it.
I'd agree. I think that thing of learning is such a big deal, especially like hiring your first employee and understanding like how do you pay them and PAYE and dealing with HMRC. I was going to swear, make sure I didn't. I stopped myself. But dealing with all that stuff, I think, has been a huge learning curve. And although that would come under my hate, I definitely love the learning part of it. Um, I love the people I get to work with. I think every day I'm surrounded by people who are passionate about the stuff that I'm passionate about, and you don't always find that when you work for someone. Maybe you work and you clock in and you clock out, but you don't necessarily vibe on the same level. Whereas when you have a mission to work towards and everyone's aligned, that can be really powerful and makes it worthwhile. Um, the other thing, I was talking to a friend of mine today who runs a games company, and he was saying that he just turned down a job because he said he loves the fact that on Monday morning, if he doesn't want to do any work and he just needs to actually stay in bed and be a grumpy sod, he does. But he works over the weekends and he makes up the time in other places. He works when he feels the most productive. And I would say I do the same thing. Like, I know if I'm procrastinating, I need to get out and I need to go and walk the dog, or I need to go and eat a jar of Nutella, whatever it is, like to focus on what I actually need to do. And I think having that freedom and not being on the clock, so to speak, is quite powerful, although it's also really dangerous because you can end up not doing anything. So I guess there's a downside of that too, which also does happen. Um,
And I think the point you said earlier, I didn't really touch on that, but that idea that I'm really lucky that I get to work with lots of entrepreneurs and startups, and that's a real privilege to work with those sorts of people. Lots of people that are in early stages of starting business, and are really excited about what they're doing. They're often might be very technically gifted or very bright in some way, or very skilled, or just passionate about something, and that's a real privilege to work with those people.
and what do you hate? Quickly though.
What do I hate?
You've got like 10 seconds.
Uh, running a business can be hard, and there's obviously pressures, and sometimes you don't make enough money, sometimes you don't make enough sales, and you have to deal with cash flow, and sometimes clients are difficult. We have a business that we deal directly with clients. We don't sell a product via a website, so we're working with clients all the time, and that can be challenging. And you have to be very be very careful about who you get into business with as well, because that can be challenging. If you're in business with the wrong people, if you have business partners that aren't aligned with what you want to do, then that can be hard. So there's definitely, it comes with a lot of responsibility. You're responsible for your employees whilst they work for you. You obviously have a responsibility to make sure that they get what they need from work, and that's not just money, and that they're looked after in the right way. And you want to keep them employed. You want to make sure that they've still got a job, and that's really really important. And you want them to have an environment that's fun to be in. So it definitely has pressures. It definitely is difficult at times, but there's definitely a balance there between the two things. What about you?
What do I hate? I hate people asking me to do work for free. I think this idea that doing free work gets you exposure is bullshit, and I refuse to do it. I hate anything that has to do with accounting and financing. I'm useless at it. And then Petra asked a really good question, which would be one of my hates. How did you survive the first year or two where you start without 100% of income? It's a really good question because that is the hardest bit. Like, how do you do it without making money initially? And I'm very, very privileged that Tom came on board and invested at the beginning, which meant that I could do it full time. But that's a massive privilege. Like friends and family rounds, which is where you raise money from your networks, is some people can do it because they have friends and family who have the ability to put money in, but that's a very privileged group of people who have that. So I guess one of the ways of doing it is by doing it initially on the side, doing it where you're building it up alongside the job that is paying your bills. I know friends who have run it where their partner supports them for a while they're starting the company up and they have a time frame in which they have to do it. The other way is saving up enough money that you've got at least a little bit of runway while you're trying it. So it's not impossible, but it definitely is a privilege to be able to start a company when you know you're not going to make money initially. Some of the best companies do start from companies on the side, though, right? So, my friend at Product Hunt, she started her company called, oh no, she's going to kill me, Hustle Crew, on the side, and it now makes money, but she didn't initially, and obviously Product Hunt was paying her salary. So yeah, that would be my answer to that. But it is really hard, like that thing of not having extra money to go on that holiday you want to go on, or buying lunch when everyone else is going to, like, I don't know, prep, and you're like just trying to pull back on those little things is a big deal. And not buying the clothes you want initially, or not buying the presents for your friends and family that you normally would on special occasions. And I think for me that is a big play, and it's a really hard part of starting a company. And it does take a couple of years to know that it's sustainable, right? Like obviously you can make a lot of money around Christmas or around the summer period, but then you can be quiet for the rest of the year. So once you suddenly know that you are going to have cash flow, then maybe you can relax a little bit. Is there anything you would add about starting a company? And
No, I mean, I think all those things you've said are right. It's very, it's hard to get going. I mean, the hardest thing people say about starting a business is the first step, it's starting. And that's for a whole bunch of reasons. You have to make a decision to start and do something, and that's not always obvious. And how do you support yourself in the short term, particularly, if you've got, family support and a mortgage to pay or rent to pay, and that is really, really difficult. And I've been lucky to start businesses that are very cheap to start, primarily that start with some sort of consultancy work or some, paid work, and that you can then transition over into it. And my first business, did proper business, Traffic Digital, I started, I took a loan out to buy a laptop, and that's how I started it. I just needed a laptop to do some work and to start building some websites for people. And from that, I was then able to, leave my job and start getting paid work regularly. And then I realized I had to pay back the debt for the laptop. And, and you go through those sticky moments initially, and that seemed like a really big deal at the time. And, it was. And then you obviously can build up from there. But it depends on the type of business that you're trying to start. And some businesses are much harder to, and are much more expensive to start than others if you need to buy stock or something like that. So, you very much need to think about that sort of thing.
the other thing actually that I hate is if you're paying rent for a property or you want to get a mortgage, if you are a business owner, they hate you. It is really, really difficult unless you have 5 years worth of like paperwork to show like what you're earning and what you've earned and bank statements. They make your life hell.
And even now, I've got successful businesses and money, and there's still getting things like I applied for a bank account not that long ago. I got turned down. So it's definitely challenging.
You're so bitter about that.
I am. I'll never forgive them.
I know. It wasn't even, he says it was like, what did you just say recently? Was it last year? 2 years ago?
A year ago.
All right, myths.
Yeah.
Okay, myths about starting a company, and then we'll talk about company structure, and then we will talk about, what did we say we'll talk about? Then we'll talk about having an online presence. Okay, myths. Let me think. Top myth?
Oh God, I've gone blank.
Free time. That would be my top
yeah.
one. Like when you have a job, you go in at 9, you leave at 5. You leave work at work most of the time. You don't with your own company. You live it, you breathe it, you dream about it, you eat it, all of the above. it's uh, it's definitely one of those things that I find hardest is getting away from it. And actually, I did a piece for Guardian doing a digital deep, and actually switching off my phone helped, but your mind is definitely still always on the company. And I think that in terms of freedom is definitely a myth.
And I think also, you know, the current culture we live in, it's great on one level. There's lots of proactive things, about people becoming entrepreneurs and starting businesses, which, 15, 20 years ago wasn't so prevalent. But there's a glamorization of certain aspects of business through things like TechCrunch, that they just talk about businesses that raise lots and lots of money, and that's like the only route to success is to raise lots of money from venture capitalists, and that is the only kind of startup that matters in the world. And you're not really a startup if you're not, like, trying to build $100 million business and things. And obviously none of that is true. It's not the only way, but it gets a lot of press and a lot of attention, and everyone thinks that that's what being an entrepreneur or starting a business is, and that isn't the case. There's plenty of businesses, and also I think that there's this concept they talk about people having lifestyle businesses. That's the idea that you have a business to support your lifestyle, as if there's something kind of wrong with that. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you can build a successful business that supports you and gives you the money you need and the freedom you need, and doing something that you love and enjoy, then that's fantastic. So,
well, raising money isn't success, right? Like that money doesn't belong to you. You're raising money to get over a hurdle, to get you to that next step. Raising money in itself is not success. Like, sure, you've got 3 people to believe in what you're doing and they've given you some cash to get to the next step, but that isn't it. Profit is success. So whether that profit, I find this really, really interesting. There was a conversation the other day about a British company who I won't name, who was making more profit than Uber in the UK, who raised however much money. And they called her business a lifestyle business. So I find that really, really interesting. You don't have to raise money to be a successful company. It's just so not true. I think the other myth that I hear quite a lot about is that you have to be technical to run a company. It makes life easier, yes, for sure, especially in certain aspects. But no, you don't have to be technical to run a company or to start a company.
And one of the other myths, I think, is that you have to get up at 5:30 in the morning, go to bed at midnight, and work 7 days a week.
And go for a run, and do yoga, and write a book at the same time, and run a podcast.
I do that.
No, you don't. Don't lie to anyone. Like, I hate that. It makes me so angry. Like, some people wake up at 5:30 naturally, and that's their time to work. But if your time to work is from 11 in the like late morning, afternoon, 11 like late morning until 7 or 8, that's fine. Also, you're not going to be working all that time either. No one sits in the office from 9 to 5 and actually works that whole time. Spend most of the time on Instagram. But it's
Oh,
true.
that's what you do.
Yeah, that is what I do. But spending those 2, 3 hours of solid, uninterrupted work is way more valuable than spending 8 hours doing nothing.
And you also, sometimes you have to have periods where you work, but some people
That's
think
not
that.
what I'm saying.
No, but that's the thing, isn't it? It's just getting that balance right. And I think sometimes people think that's what running a business is working every hour. Nonsense.
Another myth. You don't have to wear a suit to be a business owner.
Really?
Look at your hoodie. Look at this.
Yeah.
Wearing lemon earrings. I mean, like, I don't really look like a CEO.
You don't have to wear those though either.
You do have to wear lemon earrings. There you go.
Okay.
They're from Moon and Wolf. If anyone wants to check them out, they're a great business run by 2 women.
I'm gonna get some.
Why did we invite him? I don't know. It's always a bad idea. Okay. Okay, cool. So company structures. So I found it really hard to get my head around this because when I was younger, I lived in India and company structures are very, very different. But I believe everyone on the talk today on the webinar is from the UK. So let's go through what some of those structures could look like. So Tom, is your company a limited company?
It isn't.
So what does that mean, and how do I become a limited company?
Well, I guess the simplest way of thinking about it is that you can start as a self-employed person, and you don't need a limited company to do that. And that you can just be a sole trader.
What does that mean? What's a sole
And
trader?
it really means that you just pretty much work on your own. You're probably not going to employ people, and you can have an entity that you can just bill people as. And
do you need a separate bank account for that?
You can have a separate bank account for it. You don't have to have it. It's very lightweight, and you really don't need to do very much to set that up.
Do I need to tell the government that I'm a sole trader?
Yeah, because there's implications from a national insurance perspective, because when you work for someone, they deal with all your national insurance and paying the tax and everything, and so you still need to think about those things. And there's some resources online on the government website, which is probably slightly impenetrable, but
no, gov.uk is really amazing.
Is it?
Yeah, it's really, really good. It talks really well about the structures and makes you go through it quite well. So we would say that the simplest form of having a company would be a sole trader, right?
Yeah.
So a sole trader, I'm just kicking off, I'm starting my business, I'm doing some sales, it's going to my own bank account, but I have to alert the government.
You still have to file your taxes every year, and you have
which
to
is your
pay.
self-assessment. If you haven't got self-assessment, that's the thing you do if you're self-employed, where you sort of tell them how much tax you or how much income you've had over the year, what your expenditure has been, and from that they work out what your taxes that you should be paying, which obviously if you're employed happens through your payslip.
And then the next level really is to create a limited company.
Yeah.
And again, it's relatively simple. You can register a limited company online. It costs, how much does it cost now?
About 11 or 12
Yeah,
pounds.
it's really super cheap. You can get an accountant to do it for you. They'll charge you a little bit more money. You can go onto a website though. You can go onto the Companies House website to look up names, because you'll want to get a name for your company, like 23 Code Street or whatever name you've chosen. So you need to go and look and see what names are available, because obviously there's lots and lots of companies out there. So you need to go through that process of finding names for the company, and you might want to try and line that up with whatever web domain name you're going to use as well. So
my company name in theory could be different to my website.
It could be, yes. It doesn't have to be the
Why
same.
would I want it to be different?
Well, you might not be able to get the domain that you want, or you may want to have a slightly different company name. You might have a good domain, but you can't get the company name for that domain. So there's a bunch of reasons, but often you'll want those names to be the same. There's other reasons.
No, I think those are pretty much all the reasons. I guess one of the reasons would be, say I was Google and I have lots of different products, then I would have a parent company called Alphabet, and then underneath it you would have all your other little ones, which if you're starting out, I don't think you need to worry about.
No.
I think you would just start with your one main product, which I think is kind of your question, Jenny. And I would always start with just your focus on the one, and then later on, if you need to change that, then you can change that around. Sorry, I saw that earlier, but I knew we were coming up to it. And I think the other really interesting thing about a limited company is that if you haven't raised money yet and you haven't got any investment, it's really super simple to structure it. And I wouldn't pay an accountant to do that first bit, because it's really simple. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes to sort it out. And I guess the complications lie within shares. So, say Tom and I both have shares in 23 Code Street. It's pretty simple. If we know what that split is, say 50-50 or whatever, we can do that ourselves. However, if you have 10, 15 people, then you may want to get someone involved to make sure that you're doing it properly. And when you raise investment and you need to change what the terms of those shares are, or create a different type of share value, then you would probably and would definitely need a lawyer involved to get that sorted.
Yeah. So when you create the company, you can obviously create different amounts of ownership for people. You can choose how many shares that the company has. That could be 10, it could be 100, it could be 1, it could be a million if you want it to be. And then you can decide who gets those shares. That could, and again, that could be as many or as few people. It could be just you could have all the shares, or you could, give them to other people that you're going to be in business with, or you can give them to people that you feel like giving to. But you probably should, not just give them away at this stage.
So if you're not a sole trader and you're not a limited company, which tend to be kind of the main ones, there are some other things that you could be in theory.
Yeah, so there's some structures around social enterprises, to be honest.
Yeah, it's true. I do. So obviously you could be a charity. So charity formations are a little bit more complicated to set up, but you get your own special charitable number, and you have slightly different rules and regulations that you have to go through. So charities are obviously another one. Partnerships are again a bit like sole traders, so it would be two of you. You're not a limited company, but you're just saying this is what we're doing, and again, it affects your tax and how you would be doing that. Then there are social enterprises. There are a few ways you can structure social enterprises. A lot of them tend to be limited companies, but in their sort of contracts and articles of conduct, etc., you structure where the money goes slightly differently. And this goes into your kind of initial contract with the company, and you can also put it into your company structure where either X amount of shares go towards a good cause, or you say that X% of the money goes somewhere, but you don't actually have to do that when you register for a limited company. You can do it later on. They are talking about having a special structure specifically for social enterprises, and there are a few random ones, but if you want to know more about that, it's like an hour-long conversation, and I'm happy to have a chat with you separately. Where to register the company? Oh, I see. As in, okay, so you would have like a registered office.
Oh, I see.
So yeah, so if you needed a registered office, you would either use something like your home address, or if you're using co-working space, so usually they let you use their space to do it. You'd want it to be in the UK if you're running a UK company. So there are services that allow you to use virtual offices as well. Things like Regis let you do virtual offices. They charge you a little amount. But if you look on the company's house website, they actually give you links to people who are reputable to do that. If you're talking about residency in Estonia,
yeah, I don't know about the e-residency in Estonia, and I obviously there can be benefits from setting up in different territories for various reasons, including tax, but probably initially, depending on what you're doing, having a UK entity is probably a good idea, and you would need to think very carefully about why you would set up in another territory like that, another jurisdiction, and what are the benefits, and how much does it really cost you to take advantage of those benefits. Because if you're going to do it for tax reasons or something, it can be quite expensive to run different entities in different places to take advantage of those things, and it's not something I've ever got into because it seems too much like hard work,
especially at the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, if you say that your company wanted to grow to Estonia, that's slightly different. But then I would recommend getting some actual advice from people who know what they're doing, which I wouldn't say is us.
No, I don't know about Estonia.
But using your home address, which is what I initially did when I started another company, is okay. But obviously, you get the crap post to your house, which isn't always ideal. But having a registered office or a virtual office would kind of be my recommendation for that. So yeah, so those are kind of the main company structures. A sole trader, which you can start right now today, you don't need to worry too much about. A limited company, a charity, and then some other alternative ways of being companies, such as social enterprises and not-for-profits, which are both slightly different. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, so there is loads of information on Unlimited, so UNLTD, which talks exactly about that, which is why I didn't want to get too much into it. And they have a lot of information on setup. So if you are looking for to set up a social enterprise, that is a really good starting point. Thank you, Joe, for that. Appreciate it. If you do have more questions about that, do email us, and I'm happy to help because I've done a lot of research into this side of the world, especially if you're trying to send money to other countries, which we don't make very easy. Cool. Did you want to say something?
We didn't mention VAT or anything like that. Did you want to cover that?
Do we want to cover VAT? No, we don't have enough time. Sorry.
It's a fascinating subject.
It is a fascinating subject. So let's quickly mention it now you've mentioned it. If you're earning over a certain amount of money,
it's about 60 something thousand.
70. It's more than that now. Right. I think it's actually 85,000.
Okay.
If you earn over 85,000 in a year, you have to register for that in a 12-month rolling basis. So it's not January to December. It's within your normal tax period. So April to April tends to be a lot of people's.
Could be, yeah, it depends what your tax is.
Yeah. So that is something. Is that for bloggers? The VAT question. That's for everyone. So anyone who earns over 85,000, who is a limited company, has to register
for VAT.
For VAT.
And what that means is that you have to charge anything you bill people, you have to charge 20% VAT on. You're effectively collecting that money for government, and every quarter you have to take that money that you've collected for them and send it to the government. But the good side of it is that anything you buy for the business that has VAT on it, for example, if you bought a laptop or something like that, you would be able to claim the VAT back. So any expenses that you have that are legitimate business expenses, you can get the VAT back. So sometimes it depends on the business that you've got. If you're buying lots and lots of, if you're manufacturing something, buying lots of supplies to build things, you'll probably find that it was very beneficial anyway to be registered for VAT, and you can choose to be registered for VAT even if you're below that threshold, if it's beneficial to you.
And just a quick point on being a blogger, sorry, just because we're running out of time, is that if you are a blogger and you are earning over that amount, I would seriously suggest registering as a limited company, even if you are just one person, because for tax reasons and stuff, it makes your life a lot easier having a separate bank account. And also it probably works out more cost effective too. But then yes, you do have that added extra of things like VAT and corporation tax. But if you balance it out, you definitely end up with more money at the end than if you were a sole trader. If you were earning that sort of amount as a blogger or a consultant or a contractor or a freelancer. So most freelancers would have their own company. What if you have to employ freelancers or interns? As a limited company, that's totally fine. They just need to send you invoices to pay. As a sole trader, I don't know, how does that work? Would it be the same?
Same process,
yeah. So all of that is totally fine. It's when you employ people and they need to be on a payroll that things get a little bit different. Any other questions on that before we move on? Of course. We'll give you a couple of seconds if anyone has any questions about any of that. I know we're flying through this stuff, but I want to make sure we've got enough time at the end for questions. Cool. Okay, so having an online presence from day one is really important for probably most businesses. And the obvious tiniest way of doing that is social media. So if you have products that you're selling or you're selling yourself, using things like Instagram and Twitter are really useful. I'm not going to talk any more about that. That is just one. Another way is using things like Squarespace. So if you aren't technical, Squarespace is an amazing way to build a really good looking website without needing to be at all technical, like zero technical skills. And it looks super duper professional. It obviously costs money. It costs something around £10 a month now, I think. And you also have to pay for your domain name. So that's like your www.23codestreet.com. So Squarespace is really interesting. If you have a shop, for example, and you want to sell your own things like Shopify are really good too. And again, Shopify, you don't need too much technical know-how, but if you want to make it look a certain way, it's definitely good to have some understanding of how it works, or being able to get someone on board to help you out who understands a bit of front end development. So kind of like, how does it look to the user and how does that bit work? So graduates from coding school staff as well, and they need the practice. So look at those places if you want to employ those kinds of people. WordPress is really interesting. You should talk about WordPress because that's not my strong point.
Well, you need to have some technical knowledge to do WordPress, really, don't you?
Yeah, PHP stuff
Yeah,
and some CSS.
yeah. So, again, if you haven't got the technical skills, things like Squarespace can do an awful lot for you. And if you want to sell stuff, you probably need to set up some sort of e-commerce environment, which there's things out there like Shopify, which are amazing as well. That's like the e-commerce equivalent of Squarespace. So, you can get these things up and running, you can get products on there, you can take payments, all really, really super easily.
But WordPress is obviously amazing too. So if you are a blogger, you can start out there completely for free without, again, they just have templates that you can use, which is really, really useful if, say, you are like a journalist kind of person, or you are starting to be like a freelance writer. I find that really useful. I don't recommend Wix, although I hear you that it's good. I find the interface can be quite complicated, and the SEO, so like the search engine optimization stuff on Wix doesn't always, it's not always as good as from places like Squarespace and Shopify, although I know a lot of people rate it. I just don't, but that's a very personal opinion, so I won't diss it too much. Um, but WordPress obviously has WordPress.com and WordPress.org, and you're right, like WordPress.org has that extra bit of functionality, so you can make it very much your own, but you do need a developer. That you need someone who understands how to structure those things. But why WordPress is amazing, and if you have got a little bit of extra budget to do it, is that you can edit it once it's done really simply. So I could build it and I could give it to Tom, and he could change all the wording from it without needing to know how to do any coding whatsoever. He could add a blog to it, he could add new products, he can change colors, although you're not allowed to change colors because that's part of our website. And he could change the events that we have, what courses are coming up. So we call that the content management system. So although it's harder to set up, it's really good to actually maintain, because then you don't need to keep hiring a developer to come in and change things. So WordPress is really useful with that stuff. So those are kind of the easiest ways to get up and running. If you then require a little bit more and you need something that's built entirely from scratch, that's when you get either a full-time developer on board, so like a CTO kind of character, or contractors or freelancers or digital agencies like Tom's, to actually like build the site that you require. But I don't feel like you should be doing that from day one, because you need to prove that what you have works. Like when we started 23 Code Street, we literally had one page that said, this is what we're doing, sign up here, with like a little contact form box. We didn't have anything else because we needed to know it would work. And what is the point of wasting all that time on a really fancy, flashy website, even though we had like a team of people who could build stuff, because we just needed to know we could get people to sign up and to pay for our courses. Is there a demand outside for WordPress developers, or can every teenager do this nowadays? There is definitely a demand for WordPress developers.
Yeah, huge.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Like what is it? 70% of the web is powered by WordPress or something?
Some crazy number.
Like
you try and find good developers, and I mean, yes, lots of teenagers can do this stuff, but it's very hard to find good developers.
Yeah, but also like WordPress.com is obviously the thing that every teenager can do, but WordPress.org, which is what we're talking about, is actually the bit that we really have a high demand for. And what's really interesting is that WordPress developers get paid so much that they don't want to be employees. They remain as contractors, and they flit around. So it's really hard to find people who stay and who are good. And yeah, the demand is just so high because the top companies are paying people so much money that it's really hard for smaller companies to find those people to come and work for them. Obviously, there are things like Instagram where you can now actually shop through Instagram and it links you to your website. Using those things too are really, really useful. Okay, so I realize we've only got 10 minutes and I promised 15 minutes of questions. So fire at us and we will answer anything that we can. People who make WordPress pages based on WordPress. Sorry, so you mean, is there a demand for people who make the templates for WordPress themselves? Okay, sorry. Petra's one of our students.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she did our webinar course.
Amazing.
I know. Who make new pages based on a theme? So what's the question, Petra? Sorry. So are you asking, is there demand for people who make new web pages based on a theme? Or just want to make sure we answer that correctly? Yeah, definitely, 100%. Like if you want to build web pages for other people, there is a demand for it, 100%. Any other questions about any of the above? So company structures or how to get your company online at the beginning. Um, I mean, obviously, we talk about doing this stuff without any technical know-how, but having that basic understanding so you can make changes yourself, I would say is.
It's really useful. I think one of the other things that you didn't mention.
Oh no.
Obviously, if you want to build a website that does have functionality and is like an app, that obviously does generally require more technical skill, but there are some useful tools out there that enable you to kind of prototype simple apps. Like there's something called Prototype on Paper, which is built by Marvel.
Well, they bought it. It's now owned by Marvel.
It's owned by Marvel. So these are a set of tools that enable you to build. They're effectively clickable prototypes. They don't have all the functionality in there. They don't. You couldn't use them, you know, as an actual working app, but they enable you to build a mock-up of what you want to create and test it with some people. I think that one of the critical things, you know, is to try and test ideas quickly with people.
Yeah.
Like you were saying with the website, is get something out there, test it, see if it works without spending the smallest amount of time and money you possibly can to find out if there's a demand for what you're thinking of doing.
And the thing about prototyping on paper is you just draw out every single page, so you don't need to know how to code it. You draw it, you take a photo, and then you put links in that allow you to click onto the next bit.
And I think there's a question here that says, at what point did you realise that your company was worth continuing and investing in? Did you run focus groups or decide based on numbers of people interested in your product, for example? So it's kind of really what we were just saying is that, you know, if you can test things quickly, you know, and find out if there's an actual demand, and if you get some inquiries or some customers, or if you are wanting to build some sort of app, before you go and rush out and pay someone a lot of money to build something, if you can create a little prototype and test it really quickly with people and see what the feedback is, you know, and try and do it in a way that it's not, you know, just asking your mum and of course she's going to say, yeah, you know, it's great. But you know, you need to get genuine feedback and see whether people are interested, and then, you know, work your way through that.
I think personally for me, when I came up with the idea, I was like, okay, I know that I need this, but how do I know if other people did? And I didn't do market research per se, but what we did do is we put the website up with a contact us form, and that contact us form sent all applications to my email. And the fact that we filled that first course, and then got a teacher in within 2 weeks to actually run the course, and then actually did the course, and then realized that we could do the course again. We just took it step by step. And that proved that it was needed. And we then grew our office into a co-working space from a free space. And then from a co-working space, we then ended up getting our own office. So there was never a point of going, I'm all in or I'm all out. It was, let's just grow this slowly. How would you go about building a following on social media after you've exhausted your friends and family? Okay, so this is a really good question because social media is very, very slow, and actually growing your following isn't always what you want or need. You actually need people who are customers to be looking at your stuff, potential customers. So just trying to like grow your numbers isn't very useful, although there are loads of like growth hacking techniques to grow your user base of like 5,000 or whatever. And what I've always found and where we've always made the most sales is by connecting with other groups on social media who have similar audiences to us. So, for example, Digital Mums, some of you may know, we do like we share each other's stuff and we write a piece for them or they write a piece for us, and then you get to see another person's audience, and then they come to you and they grow with you, or you write a guest blog post for someone. So say you wanted to talk about your business but you were also learning to code with say us, you'd write a blog for us, and that would mean you'd have a new audience with us. And for us, that's how we've really grown our social media presence. And although our numbers aren't crazy, our interaction is. We definitely have a lot more people who engage with us on a day-to-day basis and DM us and reply to our stories and get involved in conversations and with our blogs than just this crazy huge number, because that wasn't ever our goal.
Yeah, I think numbers aren't everything, are
No.
they? But you have to start engaging with people in the right way, and some of that actually is or can be in offline, real world ways to connect with their networks and and start sharing things between relevant groups.
Yeah, and I think there are some really good tools because you can get really bogged down with social media. And if you want to keep posting content using something like Buffer, so you just schedule all the tweets that are going to go out for the next week, on say like a Sunday evening when you pretend that you want to be, productive, but really you want to watch Netflix, or doing like your Twitter and your Instagram like schedule for the week. It's really, really useful. Other tools that I think are quite useful are Tweepy, where you can see like other people's followers and if there are people in there who you think may want to engage with you. But I try and steer away from that stuff because it can become obsessive. Oh, that's awesome, Tiffany. Exactly that. And that's why we work with people like that, because that's exactly how our messaging comes around. And a lot of their audience matches ours and vice versa. So it's nice to work with people we love. We see, and they are the same. We see these people as like friends, not competition. And that's kind of how we've grown our business, just by being nice to people, not being dicks. It's really useful. Do you think being a freelancer makes you look more professional if you're registered as a limited company? Um, I don't think it's about looking more professional. I mean, you can obviously have a company without being a limited company. I think it's more about you and your management of your taxes and your money that being a limited company is useful for. Having really good branding as a freelancer, I think, is very professional, like on your invoices, and using invoicing like software, I think is really useful. And when we have our teachers who use that stuff, it makes our life easier. But I never ask them if they're a limited company or
No, I
not.
don't think it matters.
No, it's for you.
You can create the same perception and be as professional as you can be, and that will be the best way of being professional, I think.
Yeah, and I think those things do matter, right? Like having good branding on your invoice. I'm always like, oh, that's a
Yeah,
nice invoice.
certainly having well presented and laid out stuff is good, isn't it?
Yeah, but then we're both a bit nerdy like that.
Yeah.
You both seem very independent. I am, don't I? How do you ensure accountability when working on your own, and what do you use to keep up with productivity? Okay, so I have an amazing marketing manager who's called Serena. And Serena gets very cross with me because all my lists are like everywhere, like in notebooks and then like on Google Keep. And she is forcing me to use Trello. And I hate it, but that has been really useful of being productive in a team. And I think for me, that's what it's more about. Like being productive on my own is easy because I know where my lists are and I can work through them. But working productively with a team, using something like Trello that you can all keep on top of is really useful. I also use Google Tasks, which comes up on the side of your email, but you can also have it on your phone. And I find that really useful. I use Gmail and Google Tasks together, so I know who I haven't replied to at which point and who I need to get back to, who I need to call in that day. What else do I use? I have a timer on my phone that turns my phone off between certain times of the day so that I know that those times are work days. I have a do not disturb mode when I'm going through things. And one of the biggest ones is I turn my out of office on, especially if I know it's like a really busy week. So people know that I won't get back to them and I'm not on holiday. I'm just trying to get shit done. And it's really useful. It's on this week. So if you email me, it says I'm out of office. I'm not. I just have lots to do. And it's depressing.
Oh.
What do you use?
I guess my life has changed working wise because I've got quite a lot of people that work for me, and I spend a lot of time in meetings. And I so I and my the work that I do has changed a lot because of that. So I feel that I don't really use a lot of tools to manage productivity. Just I could spend most of my days going from meeting to meeting to meeting.
But you use your calendar, right?
I obviously use my calendar. I have to use my calendar, and I obviously email is quite important, for managing the contact that I have with people. But I have a lot of people that are doing things for me, and I have to have meetings with them about the stuff that they're doing. But I'm much more managing people in their day to day and helping them and mentoring and advising them in the roles that they do, and meeting clients and interviewing people and finding new employees and finding entrepreneurs. And that's my kind of role, is much more about talking to people about stuff. So I don't really, I have a very short to-do list on my phone that I just do in notes, and
I'm jealous.
ignore it most of the time.
The only one I would add, which has been my lifesaver, is Calendly. Calendly is really amazing because you don't need to do that back and forth of when are you free? Oh, okay, let's meet here. You just send your availability through this really nice interface, and people can just book in with you and they know where you want to meet. So you can either say, definitely at my office or wherever you want. And so I have like one day a week that I block out for 23 Coast Street meetings. Calendly, we will send you all of this in the email, but it's spelled like this. Obviously, I can't speak. And that's definitely the one I use the most, and I send it to anyone.
That's a better name, Calendly.
Calendly, yeah.
That's a much happier sounding name.
Maybe I can't say my D's.
Yeah.
Calendly. Does anyone have one final question? We'll take one last one because I know we started a little bit later as well. So we'll take, I want to learn to code. Once I have, how do you know you're ready to apply for a tech job without suffering from imposter syndrome or come off as inadequate and inexperienced? We're actually doing a whole webinar on this in, I think, I'll show you in a second. I think it's this next one. There, what is a developer and how do I become one? With Funmi, who will be talking about this stuff. But that's quite a big question, so definitely head over to that one. But just as a short answer to that, when you learn to code, say you do either a 3-month intensive or a 3-month part-time, or you're learning to code by yourself, and you start to build things for friends and family, those are kind of the ways you start to build your portfolio. So you'll be building stuff within your courses, but you'll also be building things outside. And you will know when you're ready to do more intensive things, and you'll know what jobs you can apply for because you'll understand what you're good at by that point. But this thing about imposter syndrome is really big because we find a lot of the times that men apply for jobs that they're only like 30% like qualified for, and women are 130% qualified for and don't apply. So how we get over that is, personally with 23 Code Street, we work with partners who know where our students are at, so students have that in from the beginning. But actually, internships, paid internships, are really useful because you actually get to measure yourself against people who are already working in the industry, who are already developers, who you can learn a lot from, but you can also see actually how much do I know if I'm in that workspace. And because there's no pressure on you in an internship, so to speak, you have that freedom to really understand where you're at and where your gaps of knowledge are. So if you do a course with us, you get to do an internship at the end, like a 2-week internship, and that kind of is that bridge between learning how to code and applying for a job. And even if you don't do a course with us, come and speak to us because we're really happy to help you with that. I know it's really useful to have the two. Does that make sense? I feel like I rambled.
Yeah, it does.
Great.
It makes total sense.
Good.
When I was a developer, I had imposter syndrome for about 5 years.
I mean, I run a company and I still don't think I run the company. I tell everyone that I'm not actually the real person who runs it. I tell everyone it's Serena, it's great. Okay, awesome. So thank you. I'll let Sunita finish typing and I will answer that if it does come up. But thank you so much for joining us for our first webinar. We'd love to hear what you thought, whether this sort of structure works. So tweet us or Instagram us or drop us an email. There's some details on the next page. But the next webinar is on the 15th of November with Funmi, who is a legend. She's a developer at Starling Bank, and she'll be talking about what a developer is and how to become one. She became one a couple of years ago. So yeah, she's absolutely awesome. You are definitely not too late to the game, Sunita. There are so many people who learn how to code later on. So yeah, that's definitely not a thing. So here are our details. And yeah, please get in touch if, yeah, we'd love to hear more. Just tell us what you thought and if you have any further questions. No problem. Thank you, everyone. It's been really awesome.
Nice chatting to you all. Thanks for your questions.
I will leave it there for a second so you can take it down. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.